Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. I'm so excited about today's Shelf Spotlight. Shelf Spotlights are a series of videos that I have done where I just talk about a different topic or word in the title or something about a set of books so that I can highlight some of the books that are on my shelves. Each time I try to have a mix of books that I've read and books that are on my TBR. And today I'm going to be talking about books that are a bit underhyped here on Booktube. These are books that for some of them I've never heard anyone talk about. For others, I have only been the one that I feel like I've heard talk about them. And I just feel like maybe more people should read them, or maybe I learned about them from somewhere else, or I don't know. But these books I feel like are underhyped and very, very rarely talked about here on Booktube. Now, I don't watch every Booktube channel. There are hundreds of and thousands probably of channels out there that maybe these books are talked about in a circle that I'm just not a part of on Booktube. And that's a very real possibility. And if you know of channels that are talking about these books, please let me know, because all of these, so 4 of them I have read and 6 of them I have not yet read. And all of them I'm very interested in. And so if you've heard of other channels talking about them, please let me know, because maybe it's somebody that I need to be following as well. I'm going to start with the 4 books that I have already read, and then we'll get to the 6 that I haven't read. I could have done more. I could have done a lot more than 10, but I decided today to just cap it at 10 books. I figured that was plenty. So first of all is kind of the book that I wanted to talk about. And so that's what kind of spurred this topic for today's Shelf Spotlight. And I know that I have talked about this book quite a few times on my channel, so you're probably familiar with this one, and that is White Chrysanthemum by Mary Lynn Brocht. I don't feel like I've heard other people talk about this book though. This is a World War II historical fiction, which I know for some people is like overdone, not gonna read that, but this is so different. This takes place in Korea and Japan in World War II. In this one, we follow 2 sisters who are part of this tradition of female divers. I think it's called Haenyeo in Korea. They live in Korea, and they're out diving with their mother one day, and the older sister sees a Japanese soldier coming. She tells her younger sister to hide, and she is actually captured by this Japanese soldier. So the sisters are separated. The one who is captured is then forced to become a comfort woman, which is ultimately a sex slave on the front lines for Japanese soldiers. She's taken to Japan, or do they stay in Korea? I don't remember. She's just taken to the front lines and forced to provide sexual comfort for Japanese soldiers. And then we also follow the younger sister and the family who stayed behind in Korea and what happened to them in Korea during the war. It is devastating. It's very difficult to read. It was so beautifully done though, and I want more people to read this book. I found it so interesting, and a side of the war that I had never considered before or knew about before. So that is why I am going to recommend White Chrysanthemum by Mary Lynn Brocht as an underhyped book. Another one that I've read, and this author is one that I've heard talked about a lot, but for some reason I don't feel like many people have talked about this particular book by her, and that is Lisa Genova, and the book is Every Note Played. This one came out in 2018, so it's not that old, and Lisa Genova, as I'm sure you know if you've stuck around my channel for any length of time, she is a neuroscientist. In each of her books, she tackles a different type of brain injury or trauma or disease. And in this one of the characters has ALS. And the character who has it is a husband. He is not a very nice man. He's a concert pianist. He's a well-known concert pianist. So I loved the music aspect of this as well. She does such a great job of describing the brain disease or issue and how it affects the person who is walking through it, but also the people surrounding that person. And her stories are just so well done. I remember not really liking the main character, but by the end you start to have a compassion for him because of all that he's going through, as well as his wife and his family. It's a difficult read. They're all difficult reads. Tears will happen. But I just feel like I don't know that I've heard very many or anybody talk about this one on Booktube. I think one of her more popular books is still Alice, because it was adapted into a movie. But I would recommend Lisa Genova for sure, and just about all of her books. I want to read them all. So this is one that I just haven't heard a lot about. Every Note Played. Another author that I think is a little more popular because of some of her newer books is Christina McMorris, and this one is called The Edge of Loss. This was published in 2015, so it's a little bit older, and maybe that's why people haven't talked about it as much, because it is kind of backlist. In this one, Christina McMorris weaves together two stories. One of them takes place on Alcatraz, where the daughter of the warden, who is the youngest person to live on the island, goes missing one night, and they have to figure out where she is and what happened to her, and there's one inmate who knows. But we also follow this young boy in Ireland, I want to say, Shanley Keegan, 2 decades earlier, thousands of miles away. He's making money in Dublin pubs. He's very talented, and he just wants to come across to America, but then tragedy strikes in his story as well, and these stories are kind of woven together, which is, I just found this to be so fantastic. I really enjoyed this one, and I don't think I've heard anyone else talk about it. So that's The Edge of Lost by Christina McMorris. The last one that I have already read on this list is called The Invisible Thread. This is the true story of an 11-year-old panhandler, a busy sales executive, and an unlikely meeting with destiny by Laura Schroff and Alex Tresniowski. I learned about this one because my first full year on Booktube, I did a project where I asked 12 other Booktubers to recommend a book for me to read, and this is one that was recommended to me by Hope Ortego, who doesn't make videos anymore. I still follow her on Instagram, but this was fantastic, and it is just that, about this businesswoman who passes this young kid on the street who's panhandling, trying to get money. She decides to take him to McDonald's and give him food, and it begins a relationship between these two people and how their lives are intertwined from that point forward. I found the story very inspiring, and it also challenged my compassion and what am I doing for others outside, like to just see others outside of my own little circle. And I thought the story was beautiful. And so that is The Invisible Thread, and I've never heard anyone else talk about that here on Booktube. Now these next 6 books, I'm just not going to know as much about them because I haven't read them and because I haven't heard a lot of other people talking about them. So let me just go through them somewhat quicker. We have Where the Stars Meet the Sea by Heidi Kimball. Isn't that gorgeous? It's such a beautiful cover. I did see this on Bookstagram from the book script. She always seems to recommend books that have beautiful covers and that have proper romances or sweet romances, and I think that's what this one is going to be. From the description, we're going to follow Juliet on the brink of her 21st birthday, which is very exciting to her because she's going to inherit, be given the guardianship of her younger brother and be free from the clutches of her cranky aunt. But they go to this house party, and it seems like she insults this man who ends up being the owner of the house, who she expects is going to just kick her out and send her away. Instead, he kind of takes an interest in her. So I just feel like this is going to be a very sweet story. I'm very excited to read this, and I've never heard anyone talk about it. Have you? Let me know. Another one is Emily's Ghost by Denise Giardina, and I think this is going to be based on the Bronte sisters. It's a reimagining of the Bronte family and of Emily Bronte's passionate engagement with life. So I'm really excited to read this one, and I've never heard anyone talk about it. I hope it's a little bit gothic. I hope it's a little bit, have some basis in factual events and people. I mean, obviously the Brontes were real people, but I'm hoping to have a little bit of factual truth in there with the fictionalized story and reimagining of their life. So that sounds really good, and I've never heard anyone talk about it. How many times can I say that? Another one that's based kind of on a Bronte is Reader, I Married Him by Tracy Chevalier. Well, edited by Tracy Chevalier. This is actually a collection of short stories, which is not normally my thing. I actually can't remember the last time I've read a book of short stories, but these are all going to be centered around Jane Eyre. Reader, I Married Him is kind of a line right from the beginning, I believe, of Jane Eyre. And this is 21 different stories, all inspired by Jane Eyre. So that sounds like a lot of fun. And I've never seen anyone talk about this one either. Clearly, that's what this video is. Stop saying that. Another book kind of along the same veins as Lisa Genova and Christina McMorris. This author I've heard of quite a bit, Christina Baker Klein. She is the author of Orphan Train, which I've loved. And I actually just hauled the book The Exiles by her, which is her newest book. This is a backlist, but Orphan Train is referenced on the front. So I'm wondering if this came out after Orphan Train. This one is called Bird in Hand. And this seems to be a contemporary. This woman is on her way home one night. It's dark and it's rainy, and she gets in an accident, and her life is totally changed from then on out. When she is at the police station and she calls her husband, he kind of speaks to her with this accusatory tone, which reveals to her some cracks in the relationship that she had blinded herself to. And then she starts to look at her life with more open eyes and seeing how things really are and how fragile, like a house of cards, everything is around her. So this accident totally flips her world upside down. I know that I really liked Orphan Train. I've read it so long ago, pre-Booktube days, so more than 5 years ago, but I would like to read more from this author for sure. The Girls of Ennis is my 9th book I'm going to talk about today. This is by Patricia Falvey, and I've never heard of this author or this book from anyone else here on Booktube. The little tagline up here says, "One country, two different worlds." So maybe like an upstairs, downstairs type of a thing. Let's see, set in Ireland during the turbulent early 20th century, this sweeping novel explores an unlikely friendship between two girls of vastly different backgrounds as each tries to overcome the barriers set by class and birthright. Yeah, so it's set in the 1900s in Ireland. So the daughter of a kind of a manor house family befriends the daughter of a local farmer, and Queen Victoria is on her way and is coming to Ennismore. And that kind of has everybody all worked up because it's like a major coup that she's coming here to Ennismore. But the friendship between these two girls is also kind of a major event in their lives, turns out to be. So it sounds really good to me. I love that the take on different classes and friendship and what can a friendship overcome or not overcome. And I believe there's going to be a romance with one of the brothers. I'm not sure which girl falls in love with which brother, but I'm here for it. And finally, this book I had never heard of until 2 years ago when I first asked you all for recommendations for me to read throughout the year. This was a book that was recommended and I had not heard of it until then. And that is The Weight of a Piano by Chris Candor. That cover is gorgeous. It's very shimmery, and then the piano has like a landscape within it. It's beautiful. This one is historical. It takes place in 1962 in the Soviet Union. 8-year-old Katya is bequeathed with what will become the love of her life, a Bluthner piano built at the turn of the century in Germany, on which she discovers everything that she herself can do with music and what music in turn can do for her. I'm going to stop right there. But then we also have, in 2012, Bakersfield, California, a 26-year-old loses both her boyfriend and apartment, leading to an exasperating move that is complicated by the gift her father had given her for her 12th birthday, this same upright piano. So it sounds like these two girls, Katya and Clara, decades apart, are brought together. Their stories are somehow intertwined and centered around this piano. So I play the piano and I love stories that involve music. So this just sounds really, really good to me, and I just have never heard anyone talk about it. There I go. I said it again. But I'm very interested in it, and I'm so thankful that one of you recommended it a couple years ago, because then I found it or it was given to me or something. I don't even remember now, but I'm very, very interested in reading this one. So here are the 6 books that I haven't yet read that are underhyped here on Booktube. And then here are the 4 that I have read that I think are underhyped. I would love to chat with you about any of these books. Have you read any of them? Do you feel like they're also underhyped? And I would love to hear from you if you can think of an underhyped book that you have just absolutely loved, that you haven't really heard other people talk about here on Booktube. Build up my Goodreads to read list as if it doesn't have enough on it already. I just love hearing about books that aren't super hyped. Like I'm down to read a super hyped book every now and then, but sometimes I am nervous that I'm going to be the one person that doesn't like that super hyped book. And I think it's way more fun to find books that not everybody is talking about that I can share with you. So I would love to hear if you've read any of these, if you know of any other underhyped books that you would like to recommend to me. Let's chat down in the comments. You guys know I love talking with you down there. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be talking with you in another video very soon. Bye.